So let's go ahead and work our way around our subject. Now keep in mind you can make your brush larger and smaller to work on different areas. Getting back to our image, there we are. I'm going to just bring our density of our layer mask down just a little bit. There we are. And this is going to allow me to see through it. Now we're going to continue to use our brush tool here, but you can see as I'm painting in this direction, I actually want my hair, the hair of my brush to be a little bit smaller, and I want it in another direction. So let's go to Window and down to our brush settings, and here I'm just simply going to change the direction of my brush, and now you can see it's facing the other direction. So the idea is to kind of work with this brush and make it work for you. Make sure that it's, there we go, we'll bring that up right there. Make sure that the brush is actually fitting the hair that you want to work on. So for instance, here on the ears, this hair is a little bit longer, so we're just going to go right about there. There we go. But on the top of the ears, it's just really, really small, but we're still going to have some definition there. So I'm just going to take this same exact brush and brush it here on the top of the ears. And that's just going to give like tiny little indications of hair that's kind of poking out from the top of the ears. And there we go. As I round the corner up here, you're going to see, there we are. Really, really nice. You can see the hair kind of goes with it. Let's make our brush a little bit larger to kind of fill in some of these little gaps and add some randomness there. I think this is so cool. And then on the top, we're just going to go straight across, and that's going to give us a little bit of, there we go. So there's a little bit of hair sticking out at the top as well. And now let's just fill this area in with the same brush. So this is a really good example of using the density feature of your layer masks to hide or show a certain part of the layer. There we are, looking great. Now we have the same thing over here, so we'll make our brush nice and small, and we're going to use the same exact technique. There we are. Right over here, and bring it on down there. So again, you can just use your open and close brackets on your keyboard to make your brush larger and smaller as you need it. There we are. Bring this right around here, and the same thing right around the side of the cat. There we go, smaller brush, and that's just going to kind of fill this area in. Larger brush right here where the hair meet. I just think this is so cool. There we are. And then there's no hair on the nose, so we'll come back and do that a little different. Let's make our brush a little bit larger again. There we go, kind of taking care of all this. Now, I realize there's a little bit of white kind of showing through at the edge. That's okay. We're gonna work on that in just a little bit. Mostly, I just want the edge of our cat here to really just look like it has a lot of fur. You know, the edge is what I'm mostly paying attention to here. If it's not the right color or something like that, that's actually not that big of a deal. See how I can just make my brush larger? So that kind of looks like a little bit of the same. Let's just make our brush larger and then paint in here. We can see, you know, you're able to get some stuff like that. So same exact brush, just kind of gets larger or smaller. And there we go, a little bit larger. Gives you some of that type of, you know, kind of out there stuff. There we go. Let's paint black because maybe I just overdid that a little bit. And there we go. Let's just work on our density here on our layer mask. Here it's kind of difficult to tell where the cat starts and stops. There we go. Let's just paint black on our layer mask right there. And I'm just going to get that edge looking good. But this all looks really good. Look at that ear. Really nice. Looks like cat hair, which is really, really great. So we're looking good. Now we've got a couple areas to work on. The first thing we want to finish up is the selection around the nose. Let's just go ahead. I'm going to hold Shift and click on our layer mask. There we go. And now I'm just going to use our pen tool. So let's hit P for the pen tool. There we go. Let's go ahead and click and drag here for the eye. There we go. I'm going to hold Alt or Option. Bring that up there. Take that down, hold Alt or Option, and then bring that down again. That's just going to be for the area that there's no hair on. Let's right click, and I'm going to make that selection. We're going to feather that by 1 pixel. Okay, and then here on our layer mask, I'm going to hit Shift Delete, and we'll fill that with white. There we go. White layer mask there. Looks like we need some hair up here, so let's just go back to our brush tool. B for our brush tool. There we go. So you can see that's the edge of our cat. We'll want to use a light colored background here because you can kind of see through the eye a little bit, and with that dark colored background it definitely looks pretty weird. So a light colored background, you can change the color, but if it's dark, because you can kind of see through this eye, you're going to kind of get a little bit of a weird effect. I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click on my layer mask because I'm noticing we didn't fill some of these areas all the way in. So let's just go ahead, and I'm still using that same hairbrush, just kind of filling in some of these gaps. And this is just such, looking at this layer mask is just so nice. It's really like, you know, getting a layer mask that looks like this, very, very difficult using just like selection tools or anything like that, especially with fur. So it's just so nice to see a layer mask that looks like this. The things that make me happy. Clean layer masks. Haha. Look at that. Looks pretty awesome, huh? There we go. Let's hold Shift and click on this layer mask. See if there's any more hair we missed. Kind of, you know, there should be some hair right here, kind of poking out from the nose. And there should be like tiny little hairs on the top of the nose, right? So we'll just use a small brush. Let me hit undo there. There we go. So we just got those tiny hairs in there. Hit Shift and click on the layer mask. Okay, just need to bring this. Click on the layer mask there. Just need to bring that up a little bit more. Just making sure we're accurately representing the shape of our cat head here. There we are. Yeah, that's starting to look so good. Now we do have a couple of things. We have some whiskers left. This ear is looking a little bit funky. And we do have some lighter areas here to take care of. So first let's start with these lighter areas. So you'll notice that because we use this brush, it's making a lot of the cat hair visible around the edge, but it's also making a little bit of the background visible. So what we're going to use is a clipping mask to basically be visible where this layer is visible, and then those areas that are just white around the edge, we're going to cover those areas up. Okay, and we've got a section later on clipping masks as well. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. We're going to right click on this layer and go to create a clipping mask. There we go. And now what's so cool is with this clipping mask layer set, check this out, with this same brush, if I paint anywhere on this layer, it's only going to be visible over top of the cat because it's clipped to this layer, so it's only visible where this other layer is visible. Now if I right click, I can release this clipping mask and it's visible everywhere, but as long as I go to create clipping mask and you can see this little arrow, it's only visible on the layer underneath it. So let's just clear that layer off, and now we can use the same tool. So let's hit S for the clone stamp tool. Okay, we're just going to sample some hair and things like that from inside of the cat. There we go. And now what it's doing is it's basically filling in those areas, those dark areas there. There we go. Or the light areas, rather. It's just filling them in with cat hair. So again, if I were to right-click and release this clipping mask, you can see it's just visible everywhere. Like I'm just kind of adding more cat hair to the edge. But because we're clipped, it's only going to be visible here, and it simply just covers this up. So this is one of the fundamental strategies for hair, cutting out hair and fine edges in Photoshop. Because what it does is it means you don't have to perfectly cut out every single hair. You just have to get the shape of the hair correct, and then you can kind of come in here later with the color of the hair, and it just kind of brings everything together. There we go. Okay, and that's all light down there anyway, so that looks good. Okay, now let's hold Shift and click on this layer mask. See that? That ear is just kind of like out of focus. So what we're going to do is just paint white on the layer mask. Let's go to our brush tool. There we go. And I'm just going to actually choose a regular soft edge brush here. Paint white on my layer mask. Because this ear is just kind of like out of focus a little bit, right? So we're not really going to see that much like hair texture and things like that on the ear that's out of focus. Just kind of look like it's got a blurred edge. There we go. And that looks pretty good. So the next thing that we have are the little whiskers. So if we hold Shift and click on our layer mask here, we can see we've got some whiskers kind of going up from the eyebrows over here, probably some going out that way, and some down this way. We can't see them because they're on a white background. So what we're going to do, let's create a new layer here. Let's just use that brush we made earlier. So this, the Flern Hair 1, remember we made this earlier? We'll just paint white, and we'll just do this, right? And that's going to become whiskers. So let's just deselect here. We're just going to do this. Now I'm going to make a few like this, and then I'm going to hit V for my move tool and kind of move it into place. Control or Command T. I'm going to move it into a place so it kind of aligns with an existing whisker. Alright, and you want to make a new layer for each one of these, basically. So let's move that into place there. I know it's a little bit time consuming, but it'll kind of pay off. New layer, Shift Option Command N for that. V for the move tool. There we go. And you can see I just moved that right into there. So there we go. We got our little top whiskers there. Bonk. Let's just merge all those. So Shift click them all. Control or Command E. There we are. And now we'll create a new layer again. There we are. Trying to get something that just drawing it in here. Alright, let's get one there. Move that about into place. There we go. Apply that blur onto there and then erase it away. We'll just do the noise on all of them at the same time. So another layer here. Okay, same with our brush tool. Use our move tool to get that back in. Stretch that out. Control or Command T. Okay. I'm just going to do all my blurring and everything else. Kind of simultaneously there. There we go. New layer. Whoever thought we'd have so much fun making cat whiskers. Alright, new layer. I'm surprised that they just kind of like go down like this. I would have figured they'd be going out like that, but I guess it's a perspective thing. You know, there's probably some that are going out like that, so. Let's make sure we make some like that so it looks real. There we go. I'm doing all these on new layers so I can kind of move them around if I need to. Cool, that looks good. So now that they're all on new layers, I'm just going to shift click them all and hit Control or Command E. That's just going to merge them all together. So now they're all on the same layer. Now we're going to apply the blur. I don't like the Gaussian blur for every situation. Sometimes a box blur looks more realistic. So like a Gaussian blur just kind of makes it look fuzzy. If you go to Filter, Blur, and then Box Blur, sometimes it can make it look more like a lens. You see how it's like still has well-defined edges, but it's blurred? But to me, this looks a little bit more like what a lens would do. So we'll just go with a box blur. And then we'll go to Noise. We'll add some noise. Hit OK, and there we go. That's looking pretty good. Let's just bring our opacity down to like 80% or something like that. Maybe 90%. Okay, well there we go. Look at that. We got our whiskers. Let's just group all those. So we added our whiskers, and look, they integrate perfectly with this. That's why we made them each on new layers, so I could move them just to make sure that they would actually like fit back in with our image. So our cat is looking really, really good. Now, here the edge of our the edge of the blanket. I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. Let's bring this in. There we go. Cool. That looks good. Bring it over here. The edge was just like a little bit inconsistent, and I'd rather have a more consistent edge. So I'm just making a quick selection with the pen tool. We'll hit Make Selection. There we go. I'm going to hit Q for our quick mask, and we'll go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur, and just blur the edge of that selection. That's so nice about quick masks, is you can turn selections into editable masks, which you can blur. So let's hit OK now, and I'm going to hit Q for our quick mask again. So basically just made a pen tool, made that into a selection, quick masked it, and then added a blur. I'm going to inverse the selection and paint black on the layer mask. Control or Command H will hide that. So the reason I'm doing this is because you can see now the edge is like perfectly consistent. It has the same amount of blur for the whole thing. There we go. And it just looks like an out of focus blanket basically. Alright, well there we have it. So we can double click here on our solid color background and really just choose whatever color we want, because our cat is super well cut out from the background. I think it looks great. Let's hold Alt or Option, click on that layer mask, and check it out. Oh, we need to fix this a little bit, right? So let's just hit B for the brush tool. We'll go back down to this short hairbrush 1. Okay. Just paint white right there. See how easy it was to clean that up? Look at this, all around Mr. Cat here. Let's bring our spacing down a little bit here. I'll resave out this brush with lower spacing because I think it works better. But we have such a nice selection. Oh, we need to do the same thing here with our cat hair. Just such a nice selection all the way around the cat, and I think the layer mask is absolutely beautiful. Not to mention this cat is also beautiful. Well, there we have it, using a custom brush to define the edge of an object with hair. So this will work on any animal that has hair. Short hair is going to work a little bit better. Even people who have short hair, beards, things like that, these custom brushes are going to work super, super well. Join us in our next video where we use channels to make accurate selections of hair and then use that to cut it out from its background. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next section.